everybody, I'm Skip Elsheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime Streaming Show, where we watch old 16mm films. And that last film was Yanks Invade Africa, and it was part of a series of World War II footage films that were released, were distributed, probably not shot by Eugene Castle and his company Castle Films. And Castle Films would... either they had a deal with a newsreel company, maybe Universal, and they would repackage for home use these films. So this one was silent. Occasionally there would be audio, and also they would put it out on 8mm and Super 8. So, this was mostly sold at camera shops that sold movie cameras and movie projectors, and this was a way that you could show other things besides your home movies. So, Castle Films. Big fan. Alright, so we watch Old 16. We got a lot to watch. So this, let's learn about the responsibility of the American citizen. And, yeah. Enjoy.
When our founding fathers established this republic, they created a political and economic system unique among nations, a system which has led the United States to the very pinnacle in wealth and in world leadership. This series of programs is being presented to help all of us understand better our advantages under our American way of life.
For today's topic, let's join now a group of young people at the National Education Program Workshop in Searcy, Arkansas. At the classroom lectern is Dr. Clifton L. Gaines, Jr., noted young historian.
We're discussing today one of the most precious gifts on earth, American citizenship. American citizenship is a combination of freedom and responsibilities. The privileges of freedom come to us as a heritage from many generations of pioneering Americans. The responsibilities must be developed by each new generation, by each individual citizen. Some of you may be asking yourselves, why should we be bothered with developing citizenship responsibilities? Well, there are many reasons. One of the primary reasons is that great principles do not live from generation to generation without being nurtured, without being kept vigorously alive. Unless we understand and work effectively for the principles upon which our American way of life is founded, the structure will crumble and our heritage of freedom will perish. Another primary reason for the development of citizenship responsibility is that we are living in an era marked by the growth of socialism. To a substantial degree, in one form or another, socialism has spread the shadow of human regimentation over most of the nations of the earth, and the shadow is encroaching upon our own liberty. A third major reason for accepting our citizenship responsibilities and working at them is the presence within America of socialists and communist propagandists dedicated to the establishment of a new order. The communist fifth columnists among us are working for world dictatorship. To accomplish this, their strategy is to undermine the confidence of our people in the American system and the principles on which it stands. The socialists among us seek to bring about a gradual change in our system by gradually destroying the principle of the private ownership of property and substitute the principle of government ownership. Now let's be practical for a moment. Is the American way of life worth bothering about? That is, with a viewpoint of self-interest. Well, let's see. We know that under the stars and stripes we have more freedom than do any other civilized people on earth. Our freedom stems from the fact that America is a republic, founded on a constitution, and dedicated to the principle of democracy and the worth of the individual. The people rule. But some philosophers tell us that the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. In other words, food, the material things of life, are dear to the heart. Let's look briefly at the material blessings of America. Our nation, although containing only 6% of the land area and 7% of the population of the world, produces 42% of the world's wealth. We know that the average American in all walks of life has a living standard twice as high as the best in Europe, where socialism is widespread, and from 5 to 10 times better than in the communist countries, such as Russia and China. And if we remember our previous lessons, we know that this economic abundance is possible in America because incentives for progress and the other factors built into our dynamic private enterprise system have enabled us to utilize our resources to the fullest extent. So we do have good sound reasons, both abstractly and in self-interest, for developing citizenship responsibilities towards safeguarding the basic principles of our way of life. But let's put the full challenge in a few words. The world is caught in an era of socialist expansion. Most of the nations are affected, and America is a target. In fact, the #1 target of both the socialist and the communist. If we permit our great system to crumble through the apathy of our citizenship, we shall lose not only our freedom, but our prosperity and our still brighter future. What then must we do as citizens? What are our obligations of citizenship? #1, to understand the American way of life and what makes it tick. For instance, we should understand that our form of government is a republic, not a pure democracy, and we should clearly understand the difference. Who can tell us the difference in a few words?
A pure democracy establishes majority rule with a minority overrun.
Yes, it does. On the other hand, our republic is based on a constitution which protects minority rights.
In our republic, we have representative government, not sheer majority rule.
And isn't its authority divided into 3 branches, the executive, legislative, and judicial?
Yes, it is. And it's important, too, that in our republic, authority is surrounded by an ingenious system of checks and balances that prevents autocratic or dictatorial rule. That is, if we maintain the Constitution as our basic law. Well, that briefly sums up our political structure. What about our economic structure?
Our economic system is based on 3 major principles: private ownership of property, the profit motive, and the competitive open market.
Yes, those are the 3 great pillars. Private ownership diffuses the wealth and economic power over the very widest area, over our whole population, and makes our people independent, masters of their own lives. The profit motive, as we have learned, is active in all human behavior. In our economic system, the profit motive is the incentive for new development and constantly expanding production. And the open competitive market is where the consumer is king. It is this factor in our economy which brings about better goods and lower prices, as one company after another tries to outdo its competitors and get the consumer's business. These are some of the basic facts about our own system which every citizen should know. But now let us go on to additional obligations of American citizenship. #2, to understand communism, its basic godless philosophy, its goal of world conquest, its insidious tactics, and its cunning strategy. #3 on our list of obligations is to understand socialism and all the cunning disguises in which it presents itself to the American people. Our 4th obligation is to understand propaganda techniques as used by both the communist and the socialist. This is a very vitally important need. Thousands of good, loyal Americans have been duped into actually aiding the communist, simply because they did not look carefully before they joined some high-sounding venture or before they more or less blindly advocated some course of action. #5 in the list of American citizenship obligations is to take an interest in your public schools and in your private and public financed colleges, to take an interest in what's being taught and how it's being taught, and to take an interest in the welfare of the teachers who contribute so much to the development of America. Number 6, in addition to voting in all elections, become active in government. Run for local, state, and national office, or help select capable people of the highest integrity to serve. Be constantly vocal on all local and national political issues. Tell your representatives in Congress, or even the President himself, what you think is the best course on issues that come before the public. Number 7, strive constantly for spiritual growth. We, as individuals, can push the world along toward mankind's highest destiny if each of us will make the welfare of his fellow man his first concern, and if each of us will apply the principles of God's truth to our political and economic affairs. And lastly, obligation number 8. Dedicate a part of your everyday life to the bringing of these requirements of American citizenship to the attention of fellow students, fellow workers, neighbors, and friends. Is it too much to ask that we fulfill these obligations of citizenship? If we think so, we should read again the history of the founding of this nation and consider the hardships of the people who made possible our freedom. They felt that no challenge was too great if freedom was at stake. That spirit carried them on. It created for us the foundation of our great heritage. We have seen it flare up and burn brightly in every national emergency, on the battlefields and at home. The socialists, the communists, and their followers would like to see the American spirit extinguished. If each of us will rise to the occasion, if every citizen, young and old, will accept the challenge of his citizenship, then the socialists and communists and their followers will not prevail, and America will go on toward the fulfillment of her great world destiny. This concludes the American Adventure Series. Our next series of classes in the American way of life will be announced soon. For now, class dismissed.
The American Adventure Series is a production of the National Education Program, Searcy, Arkansas. Dr. George S. Benson, director. Dr. Clinton L. Gaines, Jr. was our instructor. This is a continuing series based on the unique political and economic system which has made America great. Watch for the next presentation of the American Adventure.
If you are interested in the roots or the seeds sown for neoconservatism, that is one of the sources. Fascinating series of films from a little college in Arkansas that did this program and all these brochures, and they got adopted by various folks. And it's definitely part of the Red Scare that was going on. And in particular, the concern that teachers, because traditionally teachers were not paid well, they were mostly young women who were living with their parents or were married, and so they brought in a little bit of money towards the family, but the husband is who brought in the most of the money. So teachers weren't paid well traditionally, and so the concern, I don't know if you noticed that, is like, be concerned about the teachers' welfare, essentially getting them paid, because they could potentially get paid by socialists, communists. And that pops up in another film that I have by the Christophers, the Catholic organization. That's You Can Change the World. It basically says exactly the same thing, but it has a lot of celebrities in it. All right. Anyways, a little heavy, but it's interesting to watch those things, when they were made. But in the meantime, here's a film that I have no idea what it's about. It just says family. So let's watch. It's on the scanner behind me. Enjoy.
A man and a woman are drawn together upon a bed, and there is a child, and there are children. First they are mouths, then they become auxiliary instruments of labor. Later they are drawn away and become the fathers and mothers of children, who shall become the fathers and mothers of children. Their father and their mother before them were in their time the children each of different parents, who in their time were each children of parents. This has been happening for a long while. Its beginning was before stars. It will continue for a long while. No one knows where it will end. While they are still drawn together within one shelter around the center of their parents, these children and their parents together compose a family. This family must take care of itself. It has no mother or father. There is no other shelter nor resource nor any love, interest, sustaining strength or comfort so near, nor can anything happy or sorrowful that comes to anyone in this family possibly mean to those outside it what it means to those within it. Such a family lasts for a while. The children are held to a magnetic center. Then in time the magnetism weakens both of itself in its tiredness of aging and sorrow, and against the strength of the growth of each child, and against the strength of pulls from outside, and one by one the children are drawn away. Of those that are drawn away, each is drawn elsewhere toward another. Once more a man and a woman, in a loneliness they are not liable at that time to notice, are tightened together upon a bed, and another family has begun. Moreover, these flexions are taking place everywhere, like a simultaneous motion of all the waves of the water of the world. And these are the classic patterns, and this is the weaving of human living. Dr. Robert Cancrow is professor of psychiatry at the University of Connecticut. What concerns him is how to keep our expectations for the family more realistic.
The family cannot work for everyone. It never has. It can work for a large portion of the population, and it always has. The probability is that these statements will be true in the future, too.
Never before in society has there been such a high proportion of people living in families. Nearly 150 million of us in North America live within some kind of family structure. It may be in a traditional extended family, in a household which usually spans 3 generations, grandparents, parents, and children, but more likely it's in a nuclear family, parents and children without the grandparents. As the world of the 20th century shifted and flexed its industrialized, mobilized, and urbanized muscles, the family began to grow more inward, more isolated, and now we're feeling the results. No one can deny that society has changed and that the family has been affected, but to merely cite a declining birth rate or a rising divorce rate is no guide to the number of successful marriages and families in a community. Surely no one would conclude that the sharp decline in divorces during the Depression was an indication that more husbands and wives were happy together at that time than before or after. Part of the trouble with some families seems often to rise out of a difficulty in appreciating their own past. Everybody has happy times as well as disappointing times. Sometimes the unpleasant ones get in the way and remain so vivid as to blot out the good ones. But the past is, in fact, how we use it in the present. And it's important for a family to think back and remember there were times that were different, times that were joyful. Today's parent was born roughly between 1920 and 1950. In his youth, he witnessed the development of the electric light, the telephone, the automobile, and the radio. But his child has experienced the computer boom, global TV, man on the moon, and a weapons system that could destroy it all. In the process, the parent has had to surrender something. No longer can he say to his child, "I know what you're feeling because I've been through it myself." Because in fact, he is not.
Where did you go when Mommy caught you on the top of the roof?
Parents tend to raise their children on the basis of what they themselves learned as children. So when there occurs such rapid technological change, it becomes harder and harder to raise a family because a parent has less and less in the way of valid standards to go by. But what's important in this situation is that parents must not be afraid or ashamed of falling back on what they were taught was right. Perhaps a parent won't be able to help his child with homework in the future. But in this, the experts are emphatic. In the critical area of human relationships, man's ability to feel and respond and love, the child still needs a mother and father.
Well, come on and let Apple have a run because we need to.
Apple! Well, I can get your back and I'll let him go. Bless us, O Lord, for these thy gifts which both receive to thy bounty through Christ our Lord. Amen.
No. Perhaps the most important thing a parent can offer to a child is a glimpse of an adult human being, with the inconsistencies of an adult human being, with the contradictions, with the maturities and immaturities. At one moment you may be very thoughtful, and at another moment you may be quite indifferent. At one moment you may be extremely generous and loving, and in another moment totally selfish and unforgivable. And part of what this prepares a child for is the real world. Since obviously if you are able to do an excellent imitation of a perfect human being, you haven't prepared the child for planet Earth. You've prepared him to live with perfect human beings that don't exist. Allowing the child to see you as a complete human being with all of the contradictions and complexity, I think can be very helpful to a child.
One writer put it this way: by the time a parent has managed to forget that parents are imperfect, his child will be old enough to remind him.
I think the stresses on the family are much greater than they have been traditionally, and that the family in a very real sense is in an unfair situation where we are asking too much of it. And where many of the existential problems, the problems of living in the world on a day-to-day basis, the problems of satisfaction, the problems of finding meaning and purpose and dignity in your life, are increasingly difficult to obtain satisfaction in these areas. And you look to the family to give you all of the things that you're not getting anyplace else. If you come home and meet your wife with a positive kind of feeling, with a feeling of, I did something today that was worthwhile, and now I'm capping the day by being with you, it's very different than if it's, my God, heal my wounds. And especially if her feeling is, but who's going to heal mine? I feel just as bad as you do. You cannot look to the home and to that aspect of living that's related to the family to give people everything that they should get from the experience of living. It is a part of their life. It is a source of certain kinds of satisfactions. As soon as you expect it to give you things which are not built into it, it must fail. It must disappoint.
Dr. Norman Bell is head of family studies at the Clark Institute in Toronto. He knows how rare a thing it is to observe the true inner workings of a family.
I'm sure we've all had the experience of friends, neighbors, even relatives who seem to be one way. For instance, very calm and happy. And all of a sudden you find out, hey, they're separating, or hey, one of their children is having difficulties. And one begins to see then that the inner life of that family we think we know well is very different from the impression we have. Perhaps we get a little sense of what it feels like to be inside of a family and what it feels like to come in and engage a family by looking at some of the film of me interviewing the Snyder family.
This is the Snyder family. They've been married for 13 years, and they're meeting Dr. Bell for the first time. Perhaps the Snyders are not completely typical of the kinds of families involved in therapy. They've come because they were asked, not because they felt the need for professional assistance. The Snyders accepted our invitation to talk with Dr. Bell because, they said, it should be a new and interesting experience.
What I'd like to do is try to get some idea of what you're like as a family. Can you tell me what kind of a family you are?
Who's going to go first?
Close one.
Close family. You three ladies have been kind of quiet relative to the men.
Well, you have to have a listener.
When do you get your say?
Oh, I have lots of
All the time.
I have lots of opportunities.
Well, that sounds like something, a little joke there between the two of you that I didn't catch on to.
Well, how should we explain that? It isn't really a joke, I think. I have definite ideas about things, and Don has definite ideas, and...
So what happens when they meet head on?
Well, just depends if we agree or disagree, you know.
One of the great things we disagreed on was work.
Yes. I found it very difficult.
Your work or her work?
Her work.
Mine.
Her work.
Yeah.
It took me quite a long time to
To
realize.
adjust, to the idea that I just could not be happy in my home. It's just not enough of a challenge for me. It's no reflection on my husband and my children. I care for them very much, but I need something besides them.
Do you ever think about what she's doing when you're not around?
I think we trust each other fairly well. We get into, a few little hassles about, where have you been until this hour, Monday's my day at home with the pots and pans. And so I'm a great clock watcher on Mondays to see what time she's leaving work and what time she's getting home. Other than that, I don't have time to think about it.
So you keep a pretty close eye on her, huh?
Wouldn't you?
Well, she's a pretty attractive girl. I would too. But I find that, if you trust her so much, why you have to keep an eye on her like that?
Well, that's a good question. That's one of the little hang-ups that I still haven't got over about working.
Formal study of the family began less than 100 years ago. When dealing with something as essentially private and intimate as the family, it should be no surprise how little is really known of it. Only lately, for example, have the experts been able to tell us that many of the things which were supposed to be characteristic of disturbed families actually go on in almost all families. What makes one family a problem family and another one not is chiefly a matter of how they cope with things, how they negotiate with one another, rather than the kinds of stresses and difficulties they face. The man who literally wrote the book on modern child development, Dr. Benjamin Spock. Baby and Child Care was first published in 1946. Today, after 23 million copies and translation into 26 languages, Dr. Spock strongly disclaims the permissivist label. The young have always rebelled, he says.
So all this rebelliousness has to be suppressed.
Obviously, not everyone is suppressing these feelings of antagonism. Figures indicate there are over 3,000 communes in North America. The commitment to communal living is far more real and overt than beads or beards. It's also much more chancy.
But they're out, still use them for support.
Maybe that more of them are leaving home, but I think more significant is the fact that they are more openly critical of their parents' whole standards. I think it's fine that young people want to experiment with communes, and if they find that under certain circumstances, with a certain kind of selection or with a certain admissions committee, you can make communes work well, I think that's fine. This would be then one of the solutions. I've talked to a number of people who've been in communes, and I think that a majority that I've talked to found that it was harder to make an adjustment living with a lot of people than it is to live with a small number of people.
If the people can't make it together, then you can't do it. You might as well go off your separate ways and find something else. Try again.
A study recently determined that the average life of a commune is 7 months. The New World family lasted only 2.5. That idealistic search for political and personal utopia was hindered by one of the most basic challenges to living, how to get along with others. Perhaps our divorce rate could have provided some clues. Each year in North America, there are approximately 728,000 divorces. It's difficult enough to get along with one person, let alone 10 or 20.
I can still remember back in my college years and my late high school years discussing with friends in sessions late into the night. I never want to end up with the kind of boring, dead life that my parents lead. My father comes home from the office, they eat their dinner, and my mother and father with chit-chat, and then he retires behind his paper or he's brought some work home, and my mother reads a novel, and I remember saying, what a dull, deadening life that is. Well, after you get married and have a job and have a child, then mother and father both enjoy being able to relax in the evening. It takes more than just the rebelliousness of adolescence and youth and a rational impatience with the unsatisfactory aspects of marriage. It takes more than that to do away with it. I agree with the young people and the anthropologists and sociologists who say that our nuclear family is too ingrown. I don't think that our species was designed to have a young man and a young woman go off into an isolated house and bring up 1, 2, 3, or 4 children in relative isolation from the rest of the neighborhood. I think it's normal for people in any occupation, whether they're professional people or whether they're parents, to want to get together with others who are in the same situation and hash over their common problems. It's a great relief to find that other people have the same problems, that other people have the same antagonisms to somebody that you're all having to deal with. So that my own hunch is that the better way to solve that isolation of our nuclear family would be in the direction of shaping neighborhoods differently, creating a different texture in the neighborhood. I know that even in England at the present time, there's a strong tendency of a young married couple starting to rear their family, of living within a block or two of their parents. This has disappeared in a great majority of families in the United States. In fact, we turn around and say about a family where one of the grandparents is living with a young family, oh, isn't it too bad? The poor Smiths have to have her mother living with them, as if there was all disadvantage. There are some disadvantages. On the other hand, I think throughout the world, young parents have gotten a lot of their security and comfort and education from living near the grandparents, who help to ease them over from being inexperienced young parents into being comfortably secure ones.
It's a fact that many young marrieds are deciding not to have children. The birth rate over the last 10 years has declined almost 1/3. Some feel this trend signals more than anything else the ultimate death of the family.
I think just the fact that the percentage of people marrying, having families goes down doesn't mean that that's going to go on until there's nobody having children. I think there've always been plenty of people brought up in good enough families so that that ideal that they formed in childhood, I want to have a wonderful family like my mother and father, will impel them to go on and create good families.
The family is dying, disappearing. Perhaps we've all been a little too quick to jump to that conclusion. Can we exist as individuals without it? Can we learn love, responsibility, self-confidence from a government department or an academic? For most of us, living in our own imperfect families, the question need hardly be asked.
All right. So that film's got 70s smeared all over it. And I have, of course, I think I have other films in that series. But I also have other films that are kind of in that same format where, you know, we talk to some experts, then we have some sort of talking with the average person, and, you know, and it's kind of a, like, this is the state of whatever in the 70s, and this is self-reflection and this looking back and this optimism or anxiety about what the future is going to bring. It's kind of interesting. But let's do something about the weather. Enjoy.
Proudly brings you this issue of the Science Screen Report. The nation's leading independent foundry has been a growing part of the Lynchburg community since 1896. We manufacture quality engineered castings using 2800-degree molten iron and automated equipment to shape intricate parts. Chemical and physical analysis form the backbone of Lynchburg's quality control program. Precision castings are used in a variety of industrial and consumer products. Experience, technology, quality, and the foundry's greatest asset, people, have combined to make Lynchburg Foundry the leader in its field. And now, the Science Screen Report.
The Science Screen Report, bringing you each month the latest discoveries, developments, and applications of science, engineering, and medicine, made to help solve the problems of modern life. Today, growing arid and semi-arid regions cover 1/3 of the Earth's land surface. While even in vegetated areas, water is in short supply. This aircraft is helping to evaluate one answer to the growing global shortage of fresh water, a new cloud seeding system for increasing local rainfall by 50% or more. Today, scientists of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and other groups are seeking reliable ways to increase local rainfall. One successful day of investigation started in this Florida field, where a research team is setting up an array of weather monitoring sensors. Pilot balloons are released to estimate wind speeds and directions aloft. All sky camera systems are ready. Rain gauges are emptied and prepared. and a balloon-borne instrument package is sent skyward to sense atmospheric conditions. Weather modification research is the concern of farmers and other citizens, as well as scientists. Here, the Cedar aircraft are being examined by the public, while the researchers discuss the program with interested individuals. At the Florida laboratory, a morning meeting is underway. The weather briefing is first, a rundown of current conditions which may influence the experiment. Meanwhile, data from the test zone is fed to a computer, which predicts cloud behavior in order to estimate the effects of the rain-making efforts. If the outlook is poor, the flights will be canceled. But today's outlook is excellent. This is a go day. Meanwhile, the two rain-making aircraft are ready for flight. The first successful scientific rain-making experiment was carried out by Nobel Prize winner Irving Langmuir in 1946. These tests will be major scientific evidence after 30 years of research that a second technique called dynamic seeding can reliably increase rainfall. The approach involves firing these silver iodide flares into carefully chosen cloud towers to stimulate precipitation. Within half an hour, the two research planes are airborne. At the laboratory, radar images are used to guide the aircraft toward promising cloud configurations. Scientists know that a cloud has a kind of life cycle, born when water in the air condenses, growing and expanding, sometimes producing rain, and finally dissipating. Cloud seeding to stimulate rainfall uses the fact that the tops of cumulus clouds may hold supercooled water droplets, liquid water at temperatures below freezing. If the cloud tops are seeded with silver iodide, these crystals serve as nuclei for formation of ice from the supercooled water. Heat is also released, which gives buoyancy to the clouds, leading to longer life. The upwardly expanding cloud draws in still more air and moisture, and so produces additional rainfall. Air and moisture continue to rise, forming vigorous new cloud towers, which in turn result in still more rain. As neighboring clouds are seeded, they too grow and may merge with the first, further enhancing precipitation. High over Florida, one of the research planes plunges toward a cloud to start its seeding run. Sensors aboard measure wind direction and wind speed, ice crystal concentrations, and cloud water content. One sensor catches water droplets and ice crystal shapes on soft plastic for later study. Data on cloud characteristics are displayed by an onboard computer. These measurements will be used to determine the suitability of a given cloud formation for seeding. In the test zone, technicians scan the cloud patterns with advanced Doppler radar that records wind motions. The resulting three-dimensional pictures will help scientists analyze changing cloud configurations. To prevent biasing the experiment through choosing clouds by eye, the data is analyzed and the target clouds chosen in the ground laboratory, and this choice transmitted to the plane. The choice is made, and the release of silver iodide flares begins. For 25 years, United States electrical power companies have used Dr. Langmuir's discovery to multiply West Coast snowfalls in order to obtain more water to run their hydroelectric generators. In the last 10 years, southwestern farmers have similarly increased local rainfall in selected areas. Radar measurements of the test clouds are recorded on magnetic tape for later analysis. To determine any effects of seeding beyond the test zone, studies were also undertaken of satellite images of cloud cover. One research aircraft approaches still another cloud tower. Neighboring towers are selected in the hope of inducing merging. At the same time, cloud physics data is recorded for later analysis. Wind, temperature, humidity. Both instrument and visual checks suggest the clouds are responding to the seeding effort. Research on increasing precipitation is underway in many lands. The National Research Council of Canada, for example, is seeking ways to use cloud seeding to produce rain in order to put out forest fires. The test zone has become a place of rain and darkness. radars continue to track the clouds. Different colors indicate receding and approaching cloud movements. The screen also shows wind motions within seeded and unseeded cloud complexes. Three-dimensional pictures which reveal how well the test subjects develop and organize. If these experiments prove its reliability, this second basic cloud seeding approach will, in years to come, be added to man's scientific techniques for drawing more rain from the sky, when and where he needs it.
Lynchburg Foundry has been proud to bring you this issue of the Science Screen Report to further your understanding of science, engineering, medicine, and technology.
I love it. So the Science Screen Digest was basically very similar to the Screen News Digest. Screen News Digest was Hearst News Agency packaging newsreels for school distribution, and then they would find a regional or local sponsor who would pay for it to be distributed. It just happened I got a bunch from Fayetteville schools, and they were all sponsored by the local Pepsi bottler. But this different company, Allegro Films, did the same thing, where they would prepare these science things that talk about concepts in science and also what's happening now as far as technology. And then they would approach regional companies that had a science bend or an industrial bend, and that was the Lynchburg Foundry. But we've also seen Ciba Geigy, a power company, a variety of different places that are trying to get the information out there to get kids interested in science so that they get engineering degrees and then come back home and work at their company. I think that's one of their motivations for that. So anyways, some great 70s music there. And but thanks for tuning in today. Very much appreciate it. Welcome September. We will be back tomorrow, Friday, and we will watch some more films. As always, avoid the rewind devil, and just please rewind and love each other. And we will see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye.